Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Rather jovial morning today here on this taping on Wednesday, but you're listening on Saturday with your host, Jay Marsden. He's from the Marsden Law Group. I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial, and Tom Harmon from the Holliston Hub, HCAT, is the executive producer for everybody who is going to be watching this on TV.
He is.
And we, of course, are here in My FM, the home, the local home of all things Milford and the greater Milford area. And we are Money in the Law, and we are going to talk to you about money. We're going to talk to you about law.
Yep,
and
we are.
And pretty much anything else that you want to talk about, because we talk about things that are fun. That's why we're here.
Everything we touch is fun. Radio Gold. The whole thing is Radio Gold.
Right. How many times do we say after a show, like when we're walking outside, and that's the thing, like after a show, Jay and I will have a little debrief, as we walk to the car, right? And
high-fiving each other, patting ourselves on the back. What a great show.
We are so pleased with our performance
so pleased
on
with
a regular
ourselves.
basis.
Yep.
Radio Gold that's a common phrase that we hear after a show.
Yeah. Texts come flying in. That's usually what
text,
happens.
the emails,
Saturday morning, the phone's just blowing up.
Yeah,
12:01,
right.
It's just blowing up.
The offers, right?
That and some mailbox money, and then we're off we go. Right?
And there we go. Yeah, all the offers for like the syndication and all that.
Yep. Comes up all the time. We're constantly fighting the lawyers off.
Thank God we have one on staff.
That's right.
All right. So what's new with you?
What's new? Nothing. I mean, I think we've a couple things going on. We've moved into what is clearly the fall portion of the program.
Well, that's Haley's birthday. So my wife's birthday is the middle of October. So it's always like once her birthday hits, like that's the center point of autumn.
Yep. And it's here. What did somebody tell me the other day? It was the last time that sunset would be after 6 p.m. until March.
Yeah,
a little disheartening.
Just kind of how the whole daylight saving calendar works.
The whole thing shifts.
That's weird. But that's been going on for a little bit of time. You realize?
Yeah. I realize that that's not a new invention.
No,
not a new invention.
No,
that's not a new invention.
That's not someone just. You know what? I just noticed this.
Did this just start happening?
This is the thing. We need to
Yes.
put that out on the news, right? Yeah.
So that stuff's going on, and we just finished the run of parent weekends.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because you got to go out and you just dropped your kid off 15 minutes ago, and now the school's like, hey, you're coming back from parent weekend, right? And it's like, what are you talking about? She's still wearing the same clothes I dropped her off in. What are you talking about? So
it does sneak up on you quickly.
Oh
right?
yeah. Well, because you think you're dropping them off, and you're looking at this like glide path of just phenomenal fall weekends. You're like, oh my God, this could be so great. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, hold on. We get to parent weekend, then we get parent weekend, then we get the parent weekend, then we get the planning for the parent weekend. So we just did that gauntlet, and first of all, always great to see my kids in their own element.
Yeah.
Hanging out with their friends, meeting their friends. I mean, it's that stuff's fantastic.
And that's kind of that's really they'll put on some stuff, right? And every now and again there'll be something that's interesting that happens at school. But the last one we went to, my kid's like, I don't want to go to any of that stuff.
I know that's what happens to us,
right?
Yep.
So and which I understand. Which we're like, what? What do you mean? But don't we want to support your school? But at the end of the day, you're there for them, and really that's the best part about it is you get to meet them.
That's right.
See them hanging out with their buddies.
Yep.
You get to kind of evaluate their buddies, and that's always that's a good time.
Yeah. So that's
you get you get that snapshot of like, oh, I remember college. Like,
there's that. You walk around, you're like, oh my God, I remember this. The trees and quads. I remember this. Fantastic.
And and I'm glad you brought that up because that is a. I want to tell a quick Parents Weekend story.
Please do.
About where I was in the presence of rock and roll royalty.
All right, let's hear
rock
it.
and roll royalty. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, my daughter.
It's an hour-long show, by the way. I'm just going to give you a heads up right now.
But, all right, so I'll tell quick. Peter Kaukonen, who was one of the founding members of Jefferson Airplane and then on to Jefferson Starship. He's the younger brother of Jorma Kaukonen. He was the bassist for Jefferson Airplane. Started his own band called Black Kangaroo, and he's one of those classic 70s rockers.
Sure. They were classic 70s rockers.
Right. He's been playing ever since. Like he's that. So my daughter tells me she was one of the kids that was in her group because she was one of the the greeting people for the new kids coming in. Said, one of the kids in my group, his dad was the bass player for Jefferson Airplane.
His dad, I think, is like a musician or something like that.
So he says
Yeah.
that, right? And I go and I say to her, I go, no, he wasn't, because Jefferson Airplane, because I don't know if you're familiar with them, that's a long time ago. His dad would have to be like 80 years old. She goes, yeah, he's like 78. And I go, well, he's in, that's the right year group, right?
Yep.
So she tells me his name, I look him up, and I'm like, yep. And I'm telling, so anyway, long story short, we're at Parents Weekend. We're sitting, we rented a place, we're sitting out there, and all of a sudden Phoebe says, oh my God. She looks on the street, she goes, that's him. That's the dad. He was there with his wife. And you look at him, and I turn around, and I look over my shoulder, and this guy's wearing denim jacket. He's got like kind of that old man, long white hair,
Yep,
right?
sure, yeah.
He's got like patches and stuff. I'm like, he looks like a rocker, right?
Yes,
And I'm like, of course that's him, right? So I'm at that point where I'm like, do I need to, I gotta go say something. I gotta go introduce
this close. I'm this close.
Exactly, right? So of course my wife and Phoebe are like, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I have to do it.
Now I'm definitely doing it.
And then my wife was like, I think you went that way. So they're like, they want me to. So anyway, I pull up a picture on my phone of him from 1970 whatever one, right? And he's this gorgeous man with like super long hair, right? He's like that guy, right? So I walk up to him. They're about to get in their car, and I walk up to him, and his wife's there, and she kind of comes up and she goes, can I help you? And I go, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking for this guy. And she looks at him, and she starts laughing, and she looks over and she goes, get out of the car. And he comes out, and he was wonderful. He was gracious, and we were talking. I told him, about how I know him and how my daughter knows a son and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we have this big kind of talk. He's very nice. I tell him I'm trying to learn guitar. He goes, just start practicing 8 hours a day. And I go, of course I got that time. I go, you still play? He goes, and he looks at me, he goes, yeah. He goes, I can still shred. So it was really fun. But the best part about it, so then we leave, and I'm like, okay, I wasn't a jerk. I'm like, let's take a picture or anything like that. So we leave, and we're walking around Mystic later on, about a couple hours later. And I'm in, and I go to Haley, and there's a store called the Man Store, right? And it's like for all dude stuff, like man. I'm like, we got to go in here. We got to go. Come on,
man, I'm going in.
Exactly, right? So we go into the Man Store, and I'm standing there, and as I'm standing right here, and for those of you who can't see, it was a little radio thing, I look over my left shoulder. Who's standing right behind me? The man, Peter Kaukonen.
Yep.
Walks, and I'm like, of course I'm meeting you in the Man Store, my dear friend, Mr. Kaukonen.
Yeah, now we're buddies, yeah.
So then I got to meet his son, and so yeah, so that was, and I was telling her, but I'm like, we're in the presence of rock and roll royalty. This is real, and he's like, I know. Yeah, it was very exciting. So look him up on the web. Peter Kaukonen is an incredible guitar player.
So those guys are funny because they like that whole idea that I can still shred. Like that's what they've done for a million years.
Yeah.
Some of it conscious, some of it unconsciously, depending on the time and depending on the decade.
There was ebbs and flows.
Some shows they remember some shows better than others. Let's just say it that way.
A bit more of a recollection.
That's right. And then a lot of the after party after the show, some of that's a little fuzzy. But those guys, like, they take that, like, yes, absolutely, I can still get it done. And if somebody ever throws the challenge down, they're like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Like, the skills might not be completely there, but you know what? For a window of time to show my greatness, I'm lighting up the board.
Sure, I'm 78 years old, and of course, because I've been doing this for the last 68 years.
Yeah, my hands are like
There's this thing called arthritis. When you do make the same movements with your hands.
This is a repetitive motion issue.
It's going to be
potentially.
something,
Yep,
right?
Sure.
Yep. But you know what? If I have to play Deepwater Blues, and you want to hear me do my rendition of that on your acoustic guitar, sure, I'll go ahead. I'll fight through the pain. I'll take an ibuprofen and do this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put in some hot water later.
Sure.
Yes,
sure.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, it was very exciting. But the best part about it was just how you look at him and you're like, of course you're still a rocker.
That's the other thing. Steven Tyler doesn't put on khakis and a polo shirt and go to the store.
You're not
right?
going to see him.
That's
see
his
it.
thing. That's all he. Scarf.
Exactly. Eye makeup.
Which one am I going to wear today? God, does anybody have any more eyeliner? I seem to be running out of eyeliner. That's right. Yep. So. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, you would have been proud of me. Yeah.
Hey, people can say that about us someday.
I'm sure it's happening as we speak.
Is that you? Is this guy still around? Get out of the car.
Right.
Oh, actually, let me help him out of the car.
Yeah, it was a great picture. And he said he looks at the picture. He goes, "What a beautiful man."
That's funny. That's good stuff.
All right. So so Parents Weekend. You gotta you gotta do it. You gotta go and and
get your money's worth.
And I got my money's worth.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
But well, that was the other thing is so Phoebe is in a band, right?
Sure.
So she's like in this kind of they're trying to put it together, and she said that the Calcona kid, he's not a music major, but she said he's a very, very good piano player.
No doubt.
And I was like, why is he not in? Do you understand? Like, if we get a little legacy and
something going
Phoebe's
there,
like, but I play keyboards too, and I was like, that's all right. You're the leader of the band.
That's right.
Then it takes the pressure off you. You don't have to generate it. You don't have to like do all the actual music.
He
work.
might have some connections. They might have some connections.
Yeah.
They might know who to talk to. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Speaking,
right.
speaking of our bands, can we just stay on the music? When are we going to do our?
Well, you know what?
Have you gotten your 12-string restrung yet?
No, it's on my list. It's on my list of things to do.
All right. Well, move it up.
All right,
Move it up. Because you know why, and I'll tell you why. Because as we were saying, like it's the middle of autumn. So and what the middle of autumn marks is that, and I know you don't want to hear it, but we're in.
Summer hospice. I know, summer hospice.
It's coming.
Yeah.
But right around the corner is you know what.
Yeah.
And you know what is the Christmas party.
Yeah.
And this year's Christmas party
you want
has
to
live music.
Okay.
All right. You and me.
All right.
You and me.
All right, we'll put some time together. We'll work on some.
Get that thing.
Stuff.
Get
we'll
that thing.
Stuff.
I mean, I mean,
all right.
One song. All
right.
One, and because no one's gonna have time for it. You know, Harich and Sawyer's not gonna have time for you and me to play a whole set.
No,
they're gonna hear one song, and it'll.
And then they can make fun of us all night.
But it'll bring the house down.
That's right. All right, we'll work on it. We got it. All right, quick set list. We'll work on that.
Quick set, real quick.
Yeah, real quick.
You need to get your guitar. You can't play that little ukulele thing that you brought last time.
Travel guitar.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it.
All right. All right.
And you can't use mine because
it's your axe, baby. Yeah, I got you.
That's right.
All right, we'll work on it.
All right, so what do you got today?
Well, first of all, happy estate planning week, everybody. I mean,
I wish you made it up.
The cards are probably. I'll check when I get back to the office. They're probably maybe the mail didn't get checked, but I'll look at it.
Who said what? How is this estate planning week?
Estate planning. Don't you read anything? Don't you have
What,
any
don't
social media?
Don't I read your email
my
blast?
blog? Did you read my blogs? Yes.
You know what, everybody? This is
just making it up, but today's the day. Today's the day.
It's funny. Years ago, we tried to do that, and we did it with life insurance month.
Sure. Yes. Who doesn't love a good life insurance month, huh? The cards and the card and flower industry just see a huge bump if you look at the numbers. So it is estate planning week.
Why is it just a week? I mean,
it could be all year.
To do an estate plan, it takes like 12 weeks to get that thing
front
to back.
It could. We have
right?
clients that take that long. It could take that long, but it's estate planning week. So we're obviously just highlighting the importance of having your estate plan all buttoned up. We did a private event last week at a local community, and we talked about guys, it's estate planning week coming up, and if you needed any suggestion to sit down and revisit, and especially in light of what we talked about on the previous show, changes to the estate tax in Massachusetts, this would be a really good time to be reminded that it might be time for a refresh or an upgrade on your estate plan. And one of the reasons I say that is because a lot of the plans that we see that come into the office are these older two-trust plans because
that are wrong.
Well, they were built on a chassis at the time that addressed a certain tax situation that may no longer apply, right? Or not only may no longer apply, but there's also this movement, and for people who haven't read the book, there's a book out there, I think it's called Die Broke, something along those lines. And the idea...
I thought it was estate planning in Massachusetts, but
same thing, Die Broke, Die Broke. But the idea is that, people have moved on with this concept of saying, look, maybe the goal shouldn't be to hang on to all of our money until we go to our great reward. Maybe there's a little bit more of an intentional transfer of wealth in people's families because A, they can afford to do it. B, everything is so just gosh darn expensive, especially when it comes to real estate and college tuitions and things like that. So a lot of clients, a lot of moms and dads are thinking to themselves, we've accumulated some wealth here. Maybe we should start thinking about dumping this onto the kids sooner rather than later. Maybe it shouldn't be let's outlive mom and dad and hope we get some inheritance.
Dumping this on the kids. All right, kids, sorry. We have to dump.
I'm dumping 150 grand on you.
I'm dumping these $15,000 checks to all of you. I'm
18.
sorry.
18.
I'm sorry.
Yep. So that's the idea. So we've been building a conversation around National estate planning week this week.
National.
No, it's
National.
national.
Right.
Not regional. It's national.
Son,
National.
this is a Middlesex County. This is national.
This isn't just between
it's
Green Street,
America.
Green Street and
What is more-
Highland Ave.
What is more American than a good old-fashioned estate plan?
Nothing.
Nothing, right?
Nope.
Taxes, like all your, like think about it, right? It's like all your life's work, right? I mean, we joke about it, but it is, right? This is where I'm at. This is everything that I've worked for is right here, and I want to pass that on. I want to pass that to my heirs. I want to give that.
It touches on every aspect of
it's
your,
heartwarming.
let me say this. It touches on all the important aspects of your life. Yourself, your health,
Yeah.
your family,
Right.
Right? Your money, right? All that stuff, right?
all the things, all the top five, right?
Well, those, I mean, look, we can talk, theoretically about people's desire to say, look, we're taking a slightly different approach to life, and we're taking this loosey-goosey. Things aren't important. Well, you know what? There are some things that just by default
They become important because because it costs money to live, right?
It costs money to live. You want to have good health because if you don't have good health, things get exponentially more challenging. And hopefully you have a good relationship with your family where you want to see, a legacy get left to them. And so,
right. And you don't want to have all of everything that you've worked for to kind of go to the government or go somewhere where it doesn't need to go, right? How many times have you heard that?
Well, and even if you do, you want it to be a decision, right? You want, and we have plenty of clients come in and say, look, we don't care. This is our money. We made it. We are taking the approach that nothing goes to the next generation until after we're gone. That's fine. That's absolutely a very workable solution to a challenge.
I err on that side, but that's because the whole estate plan. As the retirement planner, my knee-jerk reaction is like, don't run out of money. Like that's it.
Absolutely
You can't run out of money because how many times have you heard people like, yeah, I really want to leave something for the kids. I really want to leave some real, and you're like, this is like in the beginning part of retirement planning. Like, okay, hold on a second.
Sure.
Let's see what we're working with here, and then.
Well, and when we have that conversation, and we say to people, because clients will ask all the time, how many plans am I going to do over the course of my lifetime? Well, the answer is probably 3. That's what we tell people. Maybe 4, but 3. Assuming things don't get crazy. But the last one that you do is when you can say with some degree of certainty, I think we've won the game, right? I don't, now again, somebody comes in 65 and says, I want to start dumping money on my kids. Like, well, hold on. First thing we say, Nelly, hold on,
Jimmy Generous.
Yep, let's not impoverish ourselves, in an effort. But at some point, let's target some certain things. Let's target some properties. Let's target some assets. Let's not just give the whole shooting match over. Let's hold on to some of this stuff.
The time where we see, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please.
But I just
I'm so
did.
used to it. Go ahead.
Right, I just thought of a joke and I'm going to lose it, right? Because the whole idea of the giving money to the kids. I mean, like I want to start distributing some of this money. Sometimes that starts with we've had it start with the children whisper in dad's ear, saying, "Hey, listen, can I get some of my inheritance early?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can I? It's part of my inheritance. We'll just kind of work it all. It'll all come out in the wash later on."
Well, it's so okay, and that's fine too. Maybe the answer is I've got 3 kids maybe, and one of them is doing wildly, one of them's wildly successful and doesn't have any sort of real urgent need, and then you have somebody else who's different set of circumstances who really could benefit from So again, those conversations are best had out in the light of day, if we're looking to avoid a problem down the road.
Excellent point. Out in the light of it. I like that. I like that terminology.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll. A little sunshine on it.
A little sunshine, unless it's like 10 o'clock drinking scotch in your office.
Well, that's different. That's different.
Sun up there.
Those conversations happen a lot too, but that's a different animal. That's
the light of the evening. Right. That's the light of the moon.
Light of the moon. It's the moonlight conversation. That's exactly right. That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. So we'll. I have some. I want to talk about that. I want to dive into that. I also want to talk about a very solemn thing that kind of happened. We'll tease that the passing of one Barbara D'Anzaris, Mike D'Anzaris' wife, passed away. So
condolences to the family.
For those of you who have been fans of the show, Mike D'Anzaris, he's my Jedi master who kind of brought me into the finance business. So. We intend that, so we'll talk about that. And it was a heartwarming ceremony. It was very sad, but at the same time very heartwarming. So I want to talk about that too. All right, so don't go anywhere. You're here on Money in the Law Saturday morning. Nowhere better to be than with Jay, John, and Tommy. Right? Tommy's here, Jay's here, John's here. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. And you are back. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tom is on the bag. And by the way, if any of these things that we are discussing right now strike a chord, please do not forget to reach out to us. You can get us on moneyinthelaw.net. Give us a shout, reach out. We can set some appointments up. We can have a conversation, and we are happy to talk these issues through as they may or may not pertain to you guys. But although to the untrained eye, it looks like we're sitting here and it's all fun and games, we do want to let people know if there's something we can do for you. Yeah. It's all fun, and sometimes it's games. But if these things are striking a chord, let us know.
We just redid the website. So moneyinthelaw.net is current.
It's cleaned up.
It's
cleaned
current.
up.
So get there, get to moneyinthelaw.net, ask your questions, reach out to us. I mean, send in comments. We'll definitely take some constructive criticism for the show.
Yeah, maybe. But send questions or comments in, and we'll address them on the air. We'll address them on the air. Take them on the advisement, as they say in court, which is basically like, I have time for this right now.
Speaking of court, yeah.
Yep. So what'd you have? You had something on your mind before the break.
So I just wanted to give a special shout out to Mike Dianzaris. His wife passed. She was sick for a long time. Barbara Dianzaris, arguably one of the kindest human beings ever walked the face of the earth. So that memorial service was earlier in the week. So I got to see Mike. I got to see his two sons, Mike and Chris, are two of my buddies. Was back in my old stomping grounds in Brookfield, Connecticut.
There you go.
Which, if you don't go back there I haven't been back there in a bit, and it's been more than a minute, and you get to see a lot of the old faces, a lot of the a lot of the people that, and it was a big turnout, and of course Mike Dianzaris he's a star, a pinnacle in Brookfield. Growing up, they've been there for over 50 years, and they were a big part of our lives back in the day.
Sure.
So just my heart goes out to that whole family, especially Mike, because Barbara and he were, they were that couple that, they were a couple, they were married, but they were best friends.
Yeah.
Like best friends, did everything together, and then when the grandkids came along, they were those people, right?
Yep.
They're like, hey, we'll take your kids for, a week,
month,
right? Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that Chris and Mike took advantage of them, but Chris and Mike took advantage of them, right? They're like, hey, we'll just go drop it off at Grammy's house, we're going to head out to Sonoma. It's going to be nice. Only 4 days, so.
You guys got nothing going on, right?
Tease, yeah. So I feel bad for the whole family, but it was a very heartwarming ceremony.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, so that was good. So Barbara Dianzaris.
Yep, that's great.
All right, so that's it.
All right.
That's what I got.
I thought you had a estate planning question.
Oh yeah, I had a estate planning question too. Yeah. And
they kind of go hand in glove.
In fact, this question I had for you while you were at your Florida conference.
Yes, please do tell.
So my question is, and it went around irrevocable trust. So one of the questions, and you and I kind of texted back and forth on this. So I want to talk about it because I think it's important to understand because and we've been talking about this forever. I've been in our practice we talk about it, but the whole idea of why does someone do people when the idea of trust come up and they say, well I want to do a trust, and what kind of trust do I do? Do I do a revocable or I do an irrevocable trust? And you can feel free to kind of correct me if or to adjust my understanding, but for me, the irrevocable trust, the primary reason I would do an irrevocable trust is for the Medicaid piece, right? Is if I wanted to put property into this trust that I would no longer own, and then therefore, once it's in that trust, that starts the 5-year countdown. So if and when I potentially would ever have to qualify for Medicaid, this asset of mine, this part of my property is no longer under consideration.
Yeah, I mean, we define it. That's probably the bulk of the situation.
Yeah,
right?
so that's kind of my
we define.
I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer, but I stand next to one on TV.
Yeah. I mean, so people will come in with that exact mindset coming into the office, and they'll say, look, I heard about a trust, and also we'll ask them, have you done some research? What's your level of understanding with them? And they'll talk about, I was told I should probably think about one because I'm trying. It's always around, or in many cases, it's around the idea of I'm trying to protect an asset. I'm trying to get an asset out of my name. I kind of have a place that I want the asset to go, but I don't want to give the asset to that location right away. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a placeholder for a whole bunch of reasons. And the house and the Medicaid planning and the nursing home piece of it is a big part of it, right? And but the reason, or the concept around doing something with the irrevocable trust is that I don't want to just give the house to my kids, right? If I give the house to my kids,
It's a gift.
It's a gift, number one. So now there's a potential tax basis issue that could be an issue. Could have some interesting dynamic to it. But the other piece of it is, the real big piece of it is, they don't have control of the asset in the sense that once the kids get it, the kids can decide, Ma, you're out. Dad, you're out.
Yeah, legally, there's no right. There's no
you've got no strings to kind of stay in control.
It's their house.
That's right.
Once the gift is made, and and we talk about this all the time, like with in like these kind of family loan deals and stuff. Oh, I'm going to give my brother $50,000, and he's going to pay me back. He doesn't have to.
Well, he doesn't have to. But the other thing is, other forces outside of your control could come to light that make the pinky promise deal that you guys had on the table completely blow up. You know, and so if you were going to give, if you gave your brother 50 grand and then he dies, right? And all of a sudden you go to his wife and you say to his wife, Billy owed me 50 grand. Am I going to get that from you? And she looks at you and goes, that's between you and Billy.
Yeah.
That's not me. I'm not giving you 50 grand. You're a great brother-in-law, but either I'm not giving you 50 or I can't afford to give you 50. And so I'm not doing it. I give you $1,000 a month for 50 months. I mean, and even that's a stretch.
Even and that that's not going to last, right?
Right. So the irrevocable trust is a way to sort of make the gift, create the gift, get the asset out of your name, and then still kind of have an idea of what's happened.
Well, and that's all based on how correct me if I'm wrong, but that's all based on how the trust is constructed, right, and how it's worded, right?
Yep.
So and that's how we would, again, I'm dumbing this down because he'll get all legal and lawyery, right?
We'll lawyer it up.
He can't help it. He can't help it.
So big words.
So for all of us, the simple folk, as I describe or trust somebody, I say, look, it's a box that you put property in, and inside the box there's a specific set of instructions on how this property is supposed to be distributed, what can happen to this property while it's in the trust, what is supposed to happen once the trust has run its course, who's in charge of the property inside the trust. That's how all of this kind of gets decided, because as you said, if I put a house inside of a trust, I may still live in that house, and I want to still live in that house, and legally I want to be able to still live in that house for as long as I can, and the trust can clearly articulate that's how it's supposed to work.
Think about the dynamic at work, right? You're giving away housing security, right? In the later stages of your life, when housing security probably means the most to you, right? So you're going to decide to change the ownership of your house, and there's a couple of ways to do it. One way is to just give it outright to the kids, and we talked about why that's a problem. It's a problem not only because the kids might kick you out, but again, back to this, forces that are outside of your control. One of your kids might get divorced.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, so when if you give it to your kid and they're married, then that once that property is gifted, it belongs to the spouse. It's part of their.
That's right.
Yeah. So and if they get divorced, then it's like, okay.
Well, and so here's what happens. So on the divorce situation, what happens is, everybody says the same thing, like, oh, that's not going to happen. So, okay, you know what? First of all, maybe you're right.
Come to my office. And
right? Yeah, maybe you're right, but hold on. Give me a hot minute, because I'm going to get the phone call in 2 seconds that somebody's getting divorced. And then the other thing is, why? But she wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that, right? My in-law wouldn't do that, right? And then at the end of the day, you start to say to yourself, wait a minute, hold on. Remember what's going on. It's called divorce, right?
Yeah.
They're breaking up.
Yeah.
Their lives have fallen apart to the point that they need to be away from each other.
They're going their separate ways.
Right, they're going their separate ways. And it might not be amicable. I mean,
most of the time it's not.
So when it's not, and she goes to her lawyer or he goes to his lawyer, and then they say to you, well, I need a financial statement that, by the way, is going to get submitted to the court. And so you can't lie on it. So I need to know what you own. Oh, well, we own a place on the Cape. Well, who owns a place on the Cape? Well, it was my parents. They gave it to me and my siblings. Oh, so you own a place on the Cape. Well, I don't own it. I mean, they just did this for a blah, 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 blah. No. They gave you a place on the Cape. There's nothing in any of this paperwork that says that they did it for the blah, 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 blah reasons. You have a place on the Cape. And my client wants half of your share, because that's what they're entitled to under the divorce statutes of that place on the Cape. And you're going to raise your hand and you're going to stomp your feet and you're going to hold your breath and you're going to say, but that's not fair. Well, it is fair, because you own, again, back to this, these pinky promise things don't work. How does all that get avoided? It gets avoided by using a trust, where mom and dad could say, we're changing the trustees, you don't have access to the property yet because we're not dead, it's not yours. So the trust serves as a buffer for some of these solutions. And then if it's an irrevocable trust, you're saying to yourself, look, I just have I want this off my plate.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, and it's a very efficient way to do that too. And just so we talk about some of the details of it. So in that scenario, in that example, if somebody is if someone is the beneficiary of, let's say, a piece of property that's in an irrevocable trust. So let's say my mother has her Cape House as an irrevocable trust, and I'm one of the beneficiaries of that. And let's say I'm the trustee of said trust. How is that affect? Is that if I'm in the case of if I were to get divorced, is because I'm the trustee and because I have some kind of control over the trust, is that considered part of my asset?
No, you just touched on the right words to say, right? Control is not ownership.
Yep.
Right. So I can be so I'll give you an example. We are the trustee for a number of clients on property that's in an irrevocable trust. The client said, can you be the trustee? We don't have anybody else. Great, it's you. Fine. Property goes in the trust. We're the trustees. So years back when it made sense, I'd refinance my mortgage.
Yeah.
And when I'd go to refinance my mortgage, the mortgage company would come back and they'd say, we did a registry search or whatever, and your name comes up all over the place for these properties. You didn't tell us about these properties that you own.
Oh, I thought you were refinancing some of the properties that you were the trustee of and refinance your mortgage using that.
No, that's not.
You can't do that.
They frown on that. They frown on that. They frown on that.
Yeah.
But we would refinance, and somebody would call me out and say, we attached your name to these properties.
And
right?
and because you're the trustee, your name will show up.
That's right. And so then I have to explain to the mortgage company, hold time out. I'm like, I have to give them the 101 on trust, right?
Yeah.
I have no control over those. I have control over those properties, but they're not my properties. I'm just doing what I'm told to do by my client in the trust. Those are not my properties. I do not own them.
Yep.
That's the same exact scenario. You're getting divorced. You're talking to your attorney. You say to your attorney, my in-laws had an irrevocable trust drafted up, and my husband is the trustee of that trust, and he's the beneficiary, so I get some skin in the game on that. And the answer is, well, you don't until two things happen. Number one, your in-laws have to pass away, right? That's the first thing that has to happen.
That triggers the trust to kind of go into the...
That's right. That trust will say at the donor's death, right? So the in-laws have to pass away, and you have to not get yourself kicked off the trust, right? There's two parts to this project, and at any point during the time that this trust is in effect, mom and dad may have retained a very limited, specific set of things that they can do that do not in any way shift the ownership back to them.
So, for example, what? Can they change the beneficiary?
Like change the trustee.
And they can change the trustee, and can they change the beneficiary?
In some cases, yes, they can change the beneficiary as long as they can't make the beneficiary back to themselves.
Right. So that's the important thing that I wanted to kind of bring out in the show is that the irrevocable trust. What it does, as I understand it, what it accomplishes is you no longer own the property.
Correct.
And you no longer have the benefit of said property, other than if the trust enables you to live, if it's real estate, I can live there, or if it's some sort of an asset or a money generating that you can use the interest from said address. As you can't use principal,
no principal,
but
right.
You can use the interest to augment your income or something like that.
Yeah, and so in that scenario, what somebody would do is they'd say, look, I have a $500,000 piece of property. I'm getting the property out of my name. I'm transferring the property to an irrevocable trust. I made one of my kids the trustee of said irrevocable trust. And once that deed gets recorded at the registry, mom and dad are no longer in charge of the property. Now, a week later, they change their mind, right? Marsden had no idea what he was talking about, and we think he's full of it, and we want to get the house back. They call the kid up, and they're like, hey, we want the house back. The kid's answer is either, sure, no problem, friendly trustee, I understand that something has changed about why we did this, and we can figure that out, and that's another conversation, different approach. Or the kid says, no way. We did this to protect this asset. I don't know why you changed your minds. Frankly, it doesn't
got
matter.
your back.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not. You want. You told me to not give it back to you.
Oh,
I'm not
no.
giving it back to you. Right. And
Right, you said, yeah, even if I come back and say, give it back to me, don't do it, right?
that's right.
It's like,
That's right.
yeah.
And so then mom and dad could say something along the lines of, well, okay, then fine. Then we're changing the trustee. We're making it your brother instead of you because he's going to play ball. Okay, that's possibly where this thing.
So that's interesting, right? So the idea that the donors, the people who put the money into the irrevocable trust, they're the one they do have some control in that they can change beneficiaries and that they can change the trustee.
Correct.
Okay, that's really important when we're trying to understand what that irrevocable trust is, because and it's always that. It's always like I'm sitting around the pool down in Florida, right?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
That's how it happens.
Yeah, and Tommy says, not this Tommy,
Different Tommy.
yeah, different Tommy, Uncle Tommy. Tommy says, hey, you know what my guy did? My guy up in Holliston did. He said he put all my stuff into an irrevocable trust. Guess what? I'm good to go.
I don't own anything.
The government's not getting none of this.
Yep. That's the
right
brag.
here.
That's the brag. I don't own anything on paper.
Yeah.
I'm broke.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
I
the
paid
broke.
$8,000. I'm applying for Medicaid tomorrow. If I want to move into that nursing home down the street, I could do it tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
And look, hey, and that's one approach, right? Now, the downside of that is, and we tell all of our clients, if we're going to do this, we want to do this with an asset that we're relatively certain that we're not going to need the asset, or we're not going to need the money that the asset would turn into.
All right, hold that thought. We're going
right.
to take a quick break because that's important. Is the idea of when do I do an because people are like, oh, that sounds great. Why wouldn't I put all my money into this? And we're going to tell you why that's not necessarily
Not
a good
great idea.
Don't go away on the hub,
Yeah.
on the Holliston
On the hub,
hub,
baby.
on the My FM, on the radio, everything. Money in the Law. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
And we're back, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main for Financial, and Tommy's on the bag with us. And as mentioned earlier in the show, any of these types of topics, any issues, concerns, questions around an irrevocable trust, the planning that goes into an irrevocable trust, which assets you should be using to put into your irrevocable trust, get to us on moneyinthelaw.net. And send us an email, call us, text us, write us, send us a letter, postcard, and we'll sit down and either go over those questions with you if you'd like, or just answer some questions, get you some more info, get you all coached up on it.
I said we just renewed that website. It's one
I
of
owe
the
you
things
some money?
No, you don't know.
$2 right here. All right,
No.
okay.
You hang on, hold, save your money.
All
We just renewed, but I'm pretty sure that people are going to be knocking on the door to try and buy that website off of us.
That's another future fee
that's
opportunity for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
when we decide to completely dissolve ourselves of the business, and that's just another. It's another asset.
Is Apple selling their that website?
That
Apple.com?
logo? Probably not.
No. So moneyinthelaw.net. I mean, it's value. There's a lot of value. So, but
I think they call it intrinsic value. I think that's how they describe it.
It reminded me. So I at the memorial service I was at, I met one of my our old friends, and she was telling me that she does. I was like, so what do you do? She's like, well, I do advertising down in New York City, but my advertising is mainly billboard advertising. And I was like, stop right there. I go, I love billboard advertising. She's like, yeah. I'm like, all the injury attorneys, and she goes, yeah, that's what we do.
That's the market.
So I gave her, I said, listen, this is the idea that me and my pal had, is the whole idea of linebackerlaw.com. I go, I own that. I own it right now. Jay and I own linebackerlaw.com. And think about it, right? We talked about this on the show. If you were ever to become an injury attorney, we would make trillions of dollars.
Right, we'll add the practice.
I mean, think about it. It's right outside Gillette Stadium.
It's a tweet to the website. That's all it is. It's a tweet to the website.
Right outside Gillette Stadium. You and I are standing there, and I'm there just because I'm like a legal assistant, right? Or I'll be like the guy in suits who didn't really go to law school.
That's right.
I'll
You're
be
the great
that
Mike
guy.
Ross.
Yeah. So right, and we got eye black on. We got a suit on with a numbered jersey underneath the tie. Linebacker law. Blitz. You're limited by your own imagination.
Blitzing the insurance companies on your behalf.
That's right.
Done.
The insurance company, they can't handle the blitz.
That's right.
Right?
That's
they can't have
right.
linebacker
That's
law.
right.
Me and Jay, like right on the outside.
Yep.
Of course you're calling that guy.
Of course you are. You're absolutely right. You are. You're calling him right after the injury that you get
coming out of the parking
lot. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
That's why those
you get taken out walking across Route 1 trying to get to your car.
Those billboards aren't there by accident.
No, they're not.
Well, what a coincidence. This is right
Go
here.
figure.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
funny. Look, the cannabis billboard is right here too. It's
so crazy.
That's funny.
Anyway.
Anyway.
So you're talking. So before the break, we were talking, hey, look, you don't put assets.
What do I put in the irrevocable trust,
Right.
and when and why?
So we always tell people, in many cases, not always, but in many cases, it's real estate, right? And why is it real estate? Because you got to live somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Got to have a roof over your head, right? So depending, and we try to frame the question and say, well, look, do you think at some point down the road you are going to need the house or the cash that the house would turn into, right? And depending on people's financial situation, some people say, no, Jay, you know what? We got plenty of liquid assets. We got plenty of IRA money. We got plenty of taxable money. I'm never going to need the money that this money
What
would
might
become.
I need it for? And this is a good point, because someone will be like, well, I just want to save my house. I want to save my house. And no matter what, I want to save the house. And I want to pass that on to the kids.
Yeah. Well, so this is what you're going to need it for. Because I know on your side of the table, all roads lead to retirement, right? For all the right reasons. We try to tell people on our side of the table, all roads don't lead to a nursing home. They don't lead to a nursing home.
That's right.
You may, it may. I know my industry loves to lambast you with messaging around. You're going.
You're going to be there.
They make it almost
$11,000 a month, baby.
They make it almost a near certainty.
Yep.
I get it. I
not
understand.
if, it's just
right?
when.
That's right. That's right. But that's probably not in the future. It might not be in the future for you. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to need money for long-term care.
That's the point, right?
Bingo.
That's the dip, because people are like, well, I saved my house, but you know what? Let's say you save your house, and the next stop is to go to a nursing home that Medicaid is going to pay for, but you may not want to go to that nursing home. It may not be where
you may not need to be there. I mean, there's a clinical criteria for you to be in a nursing home and have Medicaid pay the bill. Now, you can show up on your own and start writing $15,000 checks, and they could care less.
Yeah, then they're like,
how
get
good
in
or
here.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You
Yeah.
want to come in and hang on in here for $15,000 a month, and your check clears? Come
We out
on
of bed.
in. Come on in. But if you,
This is your roommate Tom.
That's right. That's right. That's right. No, I brought you one of those.
great
I
golfer.
bought you one of those putting things. You guys can just putt all day long.
That's right.
All day long, right? But you may not. That might not be you may not go there. The plan might be, we're going to an assisted living facility. Why? Well, because we're not nursing home candidates. We're not nursing home ready. But we do have some physical challenges.
Or you may already be in an assisted living.
That's
you
right.
may have been living in an assisted living place for the last 3 years.
That's right.
And you love it. And it works great. And it works great for you. And you're paying out of pocket. And guess what? You run out of money. And now you're like, okay, I no longer, and the assisted living says like, hey, well, guess what? Unfortunately, we don't take Medicaid.
It's pay to play here. Yep.
Yeah, and you're like, but all my friends are here. I like it here. I feel.
This is my home.
This is my
become
new
my
home. And, right, and I made it that way. And remember, we talk about this, like that move to the assisted live, that move out of the house. It's a huge thing. It's a huge. So if somebody does it, and then they're like, okay, this is good. This is working out for me. I miss my old house, but you know what? This is where I need to be. And then that's got to change.
Right.
And you're not, and not because you don't feel well, not because it's just because your money's run out.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, and think about it this way, right? This topic, this conversation, we talked about. I did a private presentation last week, and this was the topic of that conversation, which was private event, which was planning for this eventuality, right? But I mean, this happens all the time, right? Think about it at our level, right? When we moved to Holliston, you moved to Holliston, I moved to Holliston for a whole bunch of conditions that existed in our life at that time, right? They have a good school system. We're going to be close to family. We like the community, right? We want to be here. It's close to Boston. It's close to New York. It's close to it's close to for work. There were a lot of reasons that you made that move. All those things worked, right? And then what happened? Oh, right, life.
Yeah.
Right? Your life changes. Your life is different.
Everybody changes.
Right?
Yep.
And so all of our contemporaries, and this is anybody who's listening to the show, everyone knows this story, right? And then at some point, people started to say, we don't need this big house anymore. I don't have kids in the system anymore. Bob's retiring, Mary's retiring, Tom's wrapping it up. We don't need, our life is different now. So this arrangement doesn't work for us anymore.
Well, it's not the best fit for us,
That's
right?
right, that's right,
We're,
that's right.
we're not getting, we don't need it anymore. We don't need the school system anymore. We don't need to be, like you said, like a really big house. Let's say let's say my daughter has a huge house. That's where we've been going for all the family events and stuff.
Our needs are different now. Our needs are different. So we're making a move. Now we're either moving, there's all kinds of options, right? We have a house up north by the lake. We're going to go to the lake. We have a place on the beach. We're going to move to the house on the beach. We're going to move from our house. We're going to go to a townhouse where we don't have to do any maintenance and yard work because we don't want to do that anymore. When the kids were little, that made sense. We don't do that anymore. So you move. You do something, right? Moving through the care continuum, it's the same conversation, right? It's the same issues. Unfortunately, they're just issues that, for a whole bunch of reasons that make sense, people struggle with the addressing of those issues. And so it's different to say we're moving out of our house because we're moving into this, townhouse, because you feel like that feels like progress.
Yeah.
That feels that's a good.
Right.
We're giving up,
or we're moving to the location where our kids have moved to.
That's right. We're giving up the bad stuff to move to the good stuff. We're going to the Cape full time because it's been our vacation place, our happy place for a million years. That's all good stuff. But the same is true of wherever you end up. At some point, those things change because your needs change, right? You didn't need help getting your day together 10 years ago. Now you do, right? You didn't need, help getting around because of some type of either a chronic illness or something happens and life throws you a curveball. But those are all the same concepts. So this is what we're trying to tell people is, look, do we have the resources to pay for that transition? If we do, then we can start talking about what we're going to protect and what we're going to save. If we don't, then we have to have a different conversation.
Well, that's the thing. So when you're doing this irrevocable trust, or when you're having this discussion, you say, well, we want to do it because we want to protect the house. It's important for clients to understand, like, hey, you could find yourself in this situation. So what's the plan at that point? You've saved your house, but what's the plan at that point? And so this brings up the question that I had for you. It's like, so what happens? Can I undo an irrevocable trust?
Right. So we will say to clients, we don't want to impoverish you, in an attempt to try to beat a nursing home boogeyman who may never show up. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, yes, we can unring that bell. Now, you can go to so the situation usually goes something like, we thought we were worried about the nursing home. We planned for the nursing home. We planned to avoid the nursing home issue, but we don't have a nursing home problem right now. We have a cash flow problem, right? We have an ability to pay for mom and dad, or mom or dad or both, to stay at an assisted living facility where they would be happier, where they really should be because they're not nursing home level, but they just need to be
They may need a level of care.
That's exactly right. They need a different level of care. So the kids will say, can we sell the house? We can always sell the house, yes. Okay, so we sold the house, we get a check for $500,000. Mom and dad's trust allows them to have the income from the trust. Does the trust generate enough income to cover that plus their own income to cover the cost of their stay at whatever living arrangement that they're in?
So there's that option. So that doesn't
break the trust.
I was going to say that maintains the irrevocability of the trust.
Correct. Now the answer could be no. Even doing that, it doesn't work. We need to tap the principle of the trust, and then you have to decide. Okay, are we going to give all of the money, back to mom and dad? Are we going to give some of the money back to mom and dad? Does the trust allow for those payments to go not to mom and dad, but go to the kids? And then there's a different arrangement of how the payments get made and how things get handled. So the answer to a lot of those questions around what can we do is, what does the trust say? That 99% of the time when somebody asks me a question about a trust, that's my answer. What does the trust say we can do, right? And if the trust says, well, the parents can't get any money back, but the kids can get money back, that may be the solution to say, well, we'll give the money to the kids, and if the kids want to use it.
So then that begs the question of, does that affect, if they ever end up applying for Medicaid, is that asset, once I start drawing principal out, whether I give it to the parents or the kids, does it matter? Does that essentially make the irrevocable
if it goes to the
trust?
parents, absolutely, because Medicaid is going to say, hold on, you took money out to pay for this assisted living deal, and now you're telling us that money that you took out of the trust to pay for that, shouldn't now be available to pay for the nursing home, Medicaid's going to say flat out, absolutely not.
So at that point, so now if I take $1 out or if I take $500,000 out, does that matter?
It does. It does. Yeah.
Does that make the trust null and void?
Yeah. Medicaid would say you
for Medicaid purposes.
Well, yeah. Medicaid would say you've been claiming that this trust is irrevocable and that no benefit has flowed to mom and dad. We just showed that $1 benefit flowed to mom and dad, and if $1 benefit flowed to mom and dad, $499,000 other benefits can also flow to mom and dad. So yes, that makes it that could be fatal to the trust.
That kind of defeats the entire purpose. If the whole purpose of putting it into the irrevocable trust was to eventually to not have that asset be counted towards a Medicaid application.
That's right. And so what we would say to clients is, look, we drafted this trust, we did this at the time to solve problem X. We don't have problem X anymore. We have problem Y. And what do you guys want? How do you want to handle it? What's more important? Right now, the answer might be, you know what? Maybe we're trying to do too much at the assisted living facility. Maybe this doesn't work anymore. Maybe they weren't nursing home level 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Maybe they are now. Maybe we should go ahead and do this now. So you need to sort of, the conversation is happening on multiple levels. It's a conversation around people's health, people's mortality, people's care needs, and people's cash flow. And so you have to coordinate all of those conversations to say, does breaking the trust make sense, or is there another solution? And
you brought up a point earlier in the show, which is really important, is that nothing happens unless the trustee says it does, right? That's the...
putting aside we're going to go to court and all that stuff. Yes, the trustee is supposed to be playing ball.
If I'm going to in fact break the trust, that's a decision that that's something that the trustee executes because there's a stipulation that said that lists this inside the trust.
Well, the idea is you're saying, look, you know what? We know what this trust was set up to do. It's not going to do it now. And by the way, depending on the family dynamic, the trustee might say, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. My parents have a history. My parents have a history of doing this throughout their entire life. They do something, then they don't do it. They do something that they say is for us, and we make a whole bunch of decisions around what they said that they did, and then they change their mind and they screw us over.
No means no, Dad.
That's
no
right.
means no.
And look, and that could be something like, you know what, guys? We put the house in the trust. It's going to pay for college. That's what we want. So you guys don't save any money for college.
Exactly.
We took care of it.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And you have a document. You were at Jay's office.
You
Everybody
signed it. My mother
it.
and father told us they took care of college. We don't have to save any money for college. Oh, guys, we changed our mind.
Yeah.
Whoa,
that's
significant. So again, it's not always roses and chocolates. It could get ugly around some of these things. And so yes, in theory, the trustee has to play ball. If they don't want to play ball, you go back and you look at what we just talked about. Can I change the trustee? Yes, no. Doesn't mean, by the way, doesn't mean the new trustee's answer is going to be any different.
That's right.
They may feel the same exact way. And then you got to
figure out. It's like appointing a new Speaker of the House.
Should be a piece of cake. Should go off on a hitch.
Get the right guy up
Shouldn't
there.
make the news, but you never know. Who knows? So those are the things that with these irrevocable trusts can come up, and that's what we try to kind of coach people around to say, look, if you have. And by the way, and we have a lot of people who roll in and say, I'm all buttoned up. I get an irrevocable trust. This is good to go. And I say
all the time.
And I say, can I take a peek at that? And they go, yep, here you go. And they pass it across the table.
They say, your trustees, you and you. Yeah, right.
Trustee, you and you. This trust is revocable. Right across the top. It is revocable.
We're good. We're good. Yeah. So the house is fine.
You're not good. Yeah. You didn't do what you thought. What do you mean I didn't do anything? And what usually happens is then you dive a little bit deeper. You ask a whole bunch of different questions. And then you find out, oh, you know what? We talked about doing an irrevocable trust.
Yep.
And we didn't like the idea of giving up the control, so we didn't do that. We just did the revocable,
right.
And now we need to have the conversation.
Which brings us back to the beginning of the show. That's why during National Estate Planning Week, you need to review your estate plan and make sure it is accomplishing all of the things that you want it to accomplish.
Right. So if you want to do that, you call us at the office, 508-858-5324, or moneyinthelaw.net. Reach out to us, and we'll set up an appointment. We'll go over everything, and we'll make sure that the pencil is as sharp as it needs to be.
Don't let Estate Planning Week pass you by.
That's right. Don't miss out.
All right, we got to go. All right, great show. I mean, this is
Radio Gold.
Radio Gold. TV Gold, right?
Tommy was smiling on his face. When does that ever happen?
I mean, Tom was smiling most of the show. I know.
He's pretty excited.
Yeah, that's right. So he's having a good day. All right. So thanks for joining us here on Money in the Law. We'll see everybody next week. My FM 101.3, the home of local and the Holliston Hub. For Jay Marsden and John Drohan, we'll see you next week.
Have a great week, everybody.